Oh, folks, how y'all doing today? Today, folks, we're gonna run through an essay, a blog post of mine, try to read it out, see how it sounds out loud, that kind of thing. And it's called Liberalism's Heir. Now, liberalism has ran its course. Largely, it's a dying entity, and by that I do mean big L liberalism, as in Dems in America and conservatives, or labor, you know what I mean, and so forth. Okay, they're just dying. It's dying. It passed the torch to cultural Marxism, which itself is not a very fit entity, right? It has festered. It has created a sickness in the body politic. And the fever from this sickness, while still high, is, in my opinion, receding. Okay? We've covered that hurdle. We're over that hump. And we've come to where we will not die. But it will be rough yet. You know, this entire episode in Western history is, in my opinion, akin to a fever dream of a powerful sickness that nearly had us dead, but from which we shall rise to find new life, and we shall have a certain immunity to this disease hereafter. Now, in my opinion, the cultural sickness, like any sickness in your blood, will birth its own destruction. Sort of antibodies will be born, but they'll be social and economic and political antibodies, if you wish. You know? Now, in my own country's case, because I can't care about the entire world, I'm sorry, people, trying to pretend you can is just, it's retarded, okay? But the attempt to destroy particularly white America, but there's also white Canadians who are going to be pissed when they get their go at it, because they've been really thumbed down. The white Swedes, you get it, right? All these peoples are going to be individually angry and collectively angry, and there should be a certain interplay between the collective, but I can't care about the whole collective. I'm sorry, that's just like too autistic and too vague, okay? But these individual areas, my country particularly, would be white America, the attempt to destroy us with this mass immigration, it's going to have the white majority riled up, and in my opinion it does, as they simply have no interest. And this is across the entire West. The people have no interest in becoming a minority among minorities by and large. And my view is that when the time comes, when their backs are put to the wall, when they're forced to come back to back in a circle, you know, like a prison riot type situation, these whites, these people, these men of the West, and it's going to be largely men who are going to be going in circle around women and children who they're defending, and then it's going to be real, gentlemen. It's going to become real, okay? You know, think Watts riots or Birmingham riots on a giant scale in the West, or that Paris burning shit that happens, or Cologne, but in many cities, or those in Sweden where they're just like lying to us about these war zones, okay? I think in Australia there's even like this in Canberra and Sydney too, but it's hard to get information because they have sort of a controlled media, no less than Britain and Canada, which has its, you know, you white people are hated. Now by these metrics, by these we hate you, we want you to feel sad, we want you down, we want you crushed, we want you under our boot, which is what PC tells white men every day, all day. PC shall be judged by that metric. It shall be given the hemlock in its own measure. You know, for me, so for thee. Okay? Now that's, you know, they always want to harp about tolerance, but all they can do all they like. Territoriality among gregarious animals, that is group animals. And humans are group animals. We're group pack animals. There's no way around it. We can only argue whether we're omnivorous or predators. I don't know, both. There's a tension there, but we definitely are good at organized violence, which hunting would be the first one in the Stone Age. Think about it, you know. Okay, the Africans simply never hunted things as large as mammoths. Okay, the Chinamen did a bit, right, and they survived cold climate too, but they have a comparable everything to us. Amazing. That's why they're such a threat to us. Oh, it's crazy, you know. But see, that's this fact, this gregariousness and this territoriality and the natural instinct to defend it so that women and children of our kind can inhabit it. This is a fact. PC can try all they want, but it cannot be wished away. So is racial identity. Racial identity has a solid basis in biology, as well as cultural historical identities, which are for all the vitriol from the left. All of this race, culture, historical, understanding is more real than their construct gibberish. Okay? Biology and the hoary past, if you wish, have weight as a fact of natural affections, right? behavioral instincts that come down from our descent affect action. They affect how we organize without us even knowing it. We're totally unaware of it, you know? All animals are sort of unaware of their instincts. That's why they're instinctual. They just sort of happen in environments, and that's why certain peoples do well on certain things, producing food, taking care of themselves, and so forth, and others have less successful strategies, right? Now, this is just reality. You know, just like the left again, they can also harp about sex. Sex is real. Gender is invented fantasy, okay? Unless you mean gender as merely the expression of biological sex, which is how I learned what it is. That is, that there's a biological sex based on chromosomes, and then genders are fixed based on that. Okay, now they've warped that since then. They totally twisted that around, but I distinctly remember learning it that way. You understand? And it makes sense as such that way. Because you can have genetic misfires where there's what's called an intersex or an intergender. But these are extremely rare. Like 1 in 1,200,000 or something. It's just fucking rare. Way more. I mean, and then they don't even express. It's just a genetic fact, but it's still they go one or the other, you know? It's only like 1 in every 250,000 or something that they actually can visibly be seen to be defective. This is nonsense. There's males and there's females for all practical purposes of breeding stocks, and that's it. The feels don't figure into it at all. Okay? So the bottom line really to all of this is that creation has rules. Life results from following them. Life. Collective group life. Because life is a gregarious fact. Humans are a gregarious animal. Let's get back to that reality. The family unit, not some fantasy individual, is the fundamental basis. Death comes from defying these rules. Death. Okay? Now, part of these rules is that each kind, each sort, has a place that is theirs to have, rule, command, use, as they wish, free from outside interference. Otherwise, the natural, normal, expected result is conflict and death. Now, this is the same with animals as it is with humans. If two groups of humans try to occupy the same space and use the same resources at the same rate, they will come into conflict, period. No. If you keep them separate, however, there is no conflict. Thus, monoculture, not multiculture, will lead to peace. Less diversity, unity will lead to peace. Homogeneity will lead to peace. Heterogeneity leads to violence. Forced intolerance, forced diversity will surely lead to violence once the source of the force goes away. Once the policing power dissolves, the groups that exist will have at each other in some massive free-for-all. This is predicated upon the truth that groups are primary, not persons, you know. Persons in those groups can even like the other groups, but still yet, the group as a whole will move against the others because there is a survival instinct that exists beyond your mere self. You are part of a living dynamic into which you are born. You don't merely just get to choose this. That's liberal pape based on garbage individual nonsense. Because the fact is that persons only exist in living instances inside a group of at minimum a family. You have to have a mother and father or you're not here. Your name's not Jesus Christ. Your name is not Adam. There it is. Okay? This is life-affirming nationalist truth. Rebuild the families, rebuild the people, keep life. Because life's primary over liberty. You have to be alive to enjoy liberty. You have to be alive to enjoy it. The dead have no liberty. Now, from here, nationalism posits that every nation is unique, and nations are not collections of people in freaking land masses. Wrong answer, Jefferson. Nations are blood-related peoples with similar language, history, customs, and culture. So you can have identical peoples, like basically Anglo-whites and the British are almost genetically identical because the overlap in peoples isn't greatly different. Okay? But yet, we have our own historical development. They have another historical development. Doesn't mean we have to be enemies. We're not enemies. We're similar peoples. We're kindred peoples. We're cousins. But we're not the same. Even the Canadians have their own little flavor on it. Fine. We're kindred cousin peoples. You see? Okay? Australians, New Zealanders. Now, the Mexicans are not kindred cousin peoples to us. They're a foreign, alien, orc horde when compared to us. There you go. Okay? The Blancos in Mexico are our kindred people. They're Spanish, they're European, and they understand our way of going about things far better than the little brown insect people. So, now, From here, nationalism posits that each nation has a right to rule its own territory for the advantage of its group alone. That's right. We say openly that inclusion of others is a sickness, and that exclusion, unity, homogeneity is healthy, normal, and good. And anything else is hateful to life. It is a lie that is invented to destroy our life. So the upside of all of this is that for all of you who want to carry around the water for the blacks, the reds, the yellows, they're not our nation. They merely live in our country. Okay? There'll have to be some sort of territorial divide or accord made for them to go. Okay? Only the whites in North America of our nation, strictly speaking, and again, by a bit of an extension, all whites who are English speaking among the sort of wreck of the English Empire are akin and could be treated relative to each other as kind of citizens without suffrage. It would mean that people in Great Britain, for instance, would be able to do business here easier than, say, colored people from the third world who would be excluded. White Canadians would be able to do business here. You see how this works? There would be certain legal rights they would be protected, but they would not be able to vote. And we would not be able to vote in their elections either. This would keep us apart, but also provide binds that bind. It's not insane amongst your cousins when you think about it. It's to work in cooperation. So, you see, it's not an insane thing. And it would make a great ethno-state, which I do point out that this sort of main core of North America with these sort of appendages in cooperation would be the greatest state to ever have existed in population, resource size, technological, intellectual vigor, and frankly, will to dominate. We would have no problem keeping the Western Hemisphere utterly as our own. You understand? They'd be our helots and our perioeci. This would allow us and our cousins and our kindred, and plus the European kindreds, who are our kindred peoples too, to live very well indeed. And remember, because America is the center of a world empire right now, if America turned into what I say, if it metamorphosed into this, all the rest of Europe would feel free to follow our lead. Even maybe the South African whites could turn it around with the proper moral incentives from the imperial center, you know? Do you understand? The Canadians no longer need feel ashamed. Australians never need be told they feel hatred in their heart for themselves again, and none of this even need be remembered 200 years from now. None of it. It can all be erased. Okay? Now, one of liberalism's great insanities is that it posits that these persons, i.e. individuals, are primary in history, and thus it even denies the possibility of the family as a unit that has wholeness, or anything really that has it in it going beyond a mere contract among individuals, right? They are a death cult primarily, liberalism, because they exclude, diminish, or contaminate all that leads to life. That is, healthy normal relationships, healthy male-female division of labor. I mean, do you understand? Healthy family units that stay together with proper employment so there can be proper amount of resources applied to their children, you know, so they can raise them and bring them into society so they're raised up to be civilized. Hey, you know, right? Now, diversity, tolerance, and inclusion at their logical maximal extension require that no single nation or even stable majority have sole power. At least the globalist multicultural version does. And remember, this global multicultural version is the only official allowed version. So-called classical liberalism hides among the shadows even more deeply than the nationalist people proper like myself do these days. We are the actual vocal radicals now. They are a bunch of simpering cowards who hide from the system, hoping they can keep their lucre, their filthy money, away from the tax man long enough to be, I don't know what they think they're going to become, because we can't be bought. So who are they saving up to buy? You know? Now, the liberal PC moneylender monstrosity that is this sort of weird cultural Marxist construct, because that's really what it is. You have this liberal underlying, right? The words they use are liberal, you know, freedom, liberty, so forth, you know, right? But then you have this political correct twist on it with moneylenders behind all of it paying for it. It's bizarre, but there it is, you know? And this monstrosity is really the rule of the wealthiest few under the guise of legal language about democracy, equality, tolerance, inclusion, diversity, as wholly noble goals that bring goodness in and of themselves. It's all an insane fiction. If we're going to have the rule of the few, let us have the rule of the few who have honor, who have trustability, who have some kind of nobility in their heart, so they can actually have nobility in action as they rule. You know? This means they would be able to provide justice. Justice. You know? Not legality, justice. Not equality, but right. See, there's a fair thing. Everybody has a certain niche in life, you know? And everything isn't equal. But there's also certain things you shouldn't be able to do. Treason, selling us out, harming other people unilaterally. All these things, they should be hammered for this, and it should be hammered equally. If a poor man would get 20 years, the rich man should do 20 years in prison. There should be no lawyer games, no handshake accords, none of that. Do you understand? This is not justice. Do you understand? Now, their equality is, again, no equality. It's insane fiction. Okay? Now, if you believe it, you're nuts. Right? It's just that simple. The fact is that this legally enforced equality at A, under the usurer's lawyers, because that's really what's happening, a lawyer caste in conjunction with academia, media, moneylenders, and the PC, who all work as one. They're not at odds with each other. They're all part of the same large, overarching tyranny, is not tenable long-term because it attempts to shape reality by use, control, and contortion of words rather than describe reality using the correct words. Okay? It attempts to use courts to brow people into saying that 4 is 5, that wet is dry, that white is equal to black, that this, that, the other. It uses threats of naked force and subtle shame to ensure that we each and all will deny reality and say the insanity they prescribe for us. What of the elite? Are they denying or just insane? Oh no, they're clueless. You see, they are removed from the problem, seeing only the cream of political correctness, diversity, mass immigration, okay? Thus, the elite have nothing to deny. They don't have to deny crime, violence, rape, murder, the rest, because it's not part of their reality. Okay? For them, 4 equals 5, since all things are truly great from behind the gate. Sorry about that. Now, at any rate, white, black, red, they all pay for the rich man's homestead. You know what I mean? Okay. Thus, they can truly believe, this buddy of mine, it's okay, I'll get right back with him. Thus, they can truly believe that every person can equally care for everyone else and love all others, each to the other. They can believe this crap because their little gated community can do that. They think it's like worldwide and universal. Okay? As absurd as that sounds. Because it's possible to say such a thing in legal language and because it sounds good in their heart. Okay? I mean, the only way to just, there's no statesman-like way to go about this, but just get out of here with that, okay? Now, they can also crow about nonsense like, we are all equal, but diversity is truly our strength, among other contradictory and self-negating concepts, because again, they're removed from the physical negatives of it, the violence, the drug dealing, the pimping, the prostitution, the rape, so forth, so on, and etc. They're removed from it. Now, legalism is an abstract way, and it removes people from normal human intercourse. Lawyers and their weird people who think in their language value insane legal judgments over humans. Now, liberalism took on an immense dosage of lawyer babble, and then Marxism took that like way out into left field with theoretician type nonsense. It's just too far removed from human reality. Being at best, liberalism has always been an absurd, sophisticated model. It uses legal language to sound correct, but it's not correct because it doesn't accord with nature, with reality, with creation, right out the window here, you know? It doesn't accord with that. It's this dishuman, this just weird, inhuman disregard for the normal bonds of affection inside a family, inside a community, inside a race, inside a nation, you know. Among groups of people that will come back to bite PC, Marxism, liberalism, just as it did the commie experiment in Eastern Europe. Marxism being, of course, liberalism's inbred bastard after all. So why do these systems clash, you might ask? It's because humans seek a stable circle, sort of wife, children, grandchildren, community. This is normal. This is normal. And it's normal that some people will be higher and lower in this hierarchy, and communism and liberalism and other egalitarian nonsense tries to squash that rather than utilize these people. You see, good leaders make for good results, which make for good rule. This is, you know? Do you understand? Now this is natural. Liberalism in humanity is not natural or real. It's no more real than Stalin's fantasies. Add to this mechanical view of human nature as an inclination to promote every death-inducing fad, lifestyle, or action they can find, and it is sure they will fall from nature's good graces. I mean, you can't promote anti-life and have life for very long. I'm sorry. Now, we're thinking primarily here of feminism, sodomy, and gender equality. All against natural affection, all pillars of death cult, all sources of our doom. Now, to all this is added the fact that, that liberalism and its Marxist brood deny inherent nature to man. No, they insist that he is clay to be shaped at whim, tabula rasa. This simple assertion has caused millions of deaths as nature resists the shaping, and the liberal/Marxist has to kill the man to remake his reality, economic, social, political, or otherwise. Kulaks. Think kulaks. Think Ukrainian peasants. Think Cambodian peasants. Think, I can go on for a long time if you like. You know? Human nature will only bend and twist so far before it lashes out and sets itself back to normalcy. Think Fenrir. Therefore, nationalism based on family, home, hearth, heritage, which leads normally to a shared, naturally, human nature will only bend and twist so far before it lashes out and sets itself back to normalcy. Therefore, nationalism based on home, hearth, heritage, family, community, a commonality of shared history and culture in the context of a community of folk will prevail, as it is the normalcy. It is the normal circle of order that people seek. This is normal. In its ways are life, happiness, and purpose for the person and the greater folk together, in collaboration to the common good. We are talking about real organic nationalism among whites in America, which is growing in spite of the liberals, commies, and useful idiots among the so-called right as well. This is because life will not be denied, and in nationalism lies life. And we're not talking about internet's white nationalism. No, that's just as worthless as ever. In fact, it's a joke. It is in fact an albatross that keeps the political cadre class of the future nationalist folk fixated upon fantasy race wars rather than waking up, working to organize those of their class. You know, each person has a class. We're not Marxists after all. We all have a sort of a place, you know. And to the common end of all classes, we need to organize and caste. Castes are just divisions within classes, you see. But we need all the people that are loyal to the common good of sort of Western white history, Western white America. Does this make sense? As such, that when PC becomes weak, we'll be well placed to inherit, you know, these are rightful lands back from its tyrannical grasp. But we're going to need those people organized, politically organized, socially organized, economically organized. They have to realize why it's worth taking it back. Okay? It may seem self-evident to you, but that's why you need to be a cadre to tell others why it is this way, you know? It is a lack of a proper leadership caste among nationalist-minded folk, coupled with a lack of small, successful goals that lead to larger things, that more than anything holds them in bondage to their enemy's will. It keeps them from having a vision, a dream that motivates beyond mere personal gain or glory, that's beyond some storm the castle, yeah, get out of here, you know? It keeps them bound to the idea that leadership equals politics. Well, leadership is not politics. Leadership, statesmen are not equal to politicians. Politicians are spineless cowards. Statesmen will tell you, you're a bunch of sad sacks and you need to shape up. Because they're not afraid of your public opinion or your vote. They'll do what is needed for the greater good. Above that, without regard, leaders do more than talk. Leading is about being in front. They perform, you know? They perform, right? They make things happen in the world of real things. They do what is needed without fail, regardless of polls or popularity or double talk. They directly ensure, if need be, that their people have the things needed for life before or all other things. Again, any leader's wealth exists for the good of the folk, not for some vanity of his own, or some vainglory. That's usurer talk. That's merchant talk. Leadership, like nobility, is about service and duty. Less talk and more walk would be the most ideal thing for the West, I tell you, you know. Now, to make it clear, so we can wrap all this up, right? The entire Western world, the leaders in it, they're not leaders. They're only pimp politicians. So here we are at the end of this Marxist, materialist, liberal world era, and at the start of, really at the very precipice of, the waking up from the sickness, because it is a sickness, it's a cultural AIDS that is making us weak right now, but our body is fighting it off, it's sweating it out, it's making itself strong again. And we're at the time when new nationalism, a real nationalism, an actual nationalism based on, you know, individual, you know, historical developments, but on commonalities too. You need not take it to ultra-nationalist extremism. This is stupid, you know. And you need not take it to this dumb academic idealism where we're just going to let the third world be our equals. No, there's a hierarchy in nature, and it will be fucking obeyed. And this new paradigm will grow to be a world paradigm. You understand? Because we don't mean to be denied. We don't mean to be told by our enemies that we can't have. We shall determine what we shall have and how we shall have it. And we shall do this because our mind will become free from these weak concepts. Any organization, any idealization, any concepts that will not allow us to be free, to be strong, to be independent, you know, to have our people as we want, free in their lands, to live as white people, white Western people with white Western Christian values. Well, that power, that thing, that whatever it is, will be pushed aside, will be pushed down, will be held down, be fed to the crocodiles. There will be nothing else about it. And with that, people, we tell you that liberalism's heir in the final instance will be nationalism. We will not be denied life. Thank you.